Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I've got Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing this week?
Doing pretty good, Jamie. It's been an awesome start to my week, so I'm kind of on cloud nine. Plus, there's been lots of good gaming news which we're gonna hop into. But first off, happy birthday. Hope you had a great weekend and let's talk things, man.
Yeah, thank you. I've kind of wanted on about this on Twitter because I haven't been able to celebrate my birthday since 2017. Um, so it was nice this weekend to have my birthday fall on a weekend, celebrate it with mates, and just relax. It was very nice. It was needed. I think it's also good for people to take a step back, after you see all the stuff online of people arguing online all the time. Like, people need to take a step back, go to the pub with the friends, go watch sports, do something outside the house. Uh, People can get too wrapped up in gaming news and make it, like, affect them personally. But, again, my birthday was fantastic, and all I did was go to the pub. It was needed, and also they had the Eurovision Song Contest on all night in every single pub. Um, and I don't watch that show every year. It's like 4 hours long. But anyway, outside of all that, thank you for happy birthdays and chat. Again, it's been a good time, and I'm still going to celebrate my birthday for the next week, so that's good. Now, before we get into all the topics, which we have literally like 20, have you been playing anything interesting this past week, Logan?
Yeah, I beat it in like basically two settings, but Crow Country, which just came out, which is a indie horror game that's set in 1990. It's very much a PS1 style horror game that it reminds you of Resident Evil and Silent Hill, like classic vibes, pop culture references, like the cars, the vehicles, the old tank combat, everything. Great story, and it's set at this amusement park called Crow Country in Atlanta, Georgia in 1990. You're this girl, Mara Forrest, who goes to this amusement park and is trying to find this missing head of the amusement park, Jim Crow. It might be James Crow, I can't remember, but he's the head of the amusement park, and apparently there's been a lot of shady, sketchy stuff that goes on. And instead of, T virus, you have whatever's in this mixed with some supernaturally type stuff. And it was wonderful. I beat it. I couldn't get enough of it. I like just went straight through it and loved it. It's currently my favorite game of the year so far.
Wow, that's high praise. Um, before I get into all the games I've been playing, that Crow Country thing isn't interesting because it's a PlayStation 1 game, essentially. And I think, like, we've talked about this before, I think that generation is kind of lost. Like, that style of games. We don't have them anymore. You can go onto the Nintendo eShop or Xbox Live or PlayStation Network and Steam or whatever, and you can find an 8-bit indie game that's probably really good within seconds. But, like, the gameplay and sort of art style that you got in original PlayStation games and N64 games, you don't get that anymore. And I've never really understood why. You can make that style of game, but with modern graphics. And I think over the past year we've had now two horror games that do PlayStation 1 style graphics and, like, gameplay, which is Crow Country and what was it last year, Signalis.
Signalis, yeah, that was also brilliant.
Yeah, and, like, two very cool PlayStation 1 centric games. And all the reviews I've seen for Crow Country are really positive, and I think it's really cheap as well. I think it's £16 in the UK. I think I'm going to get it, and apparently it's not that difficult. Which, hey, I'll probably pick it up just based on that. But yeah, it sounds good, and I'm looking forward to playing it. But this past week, I've basically been playing Lost Judgment. That game is just so good. I think more people need to play these Judgment games. I mean, you don't really have to play the Yakuza games to get these at all. There's, like, mild references to the other games. Outside of that, they're not really connected. And I finished the game called Harold Halibut. It's an indie game that launched in Game Pass about 3 weeks ago. It's a sci-fi game set on a spaceship stuck under an alien ocean. It took 14 years to make. Crazy. And it's really good. I gave it an 8.5. What can I say? It's a different kind of pacing for a game. It's slow, but it's a very relaxing adventure game. Very it's very inspired by 60s and 70s sci-fi art, which if people play it, they'll know what I mean. But really good game. More Dragon's Dogma, a bunch of Fallout 4, because Fallout 4 for me, I have this weird relationship with Fallout 4, where I love Fallout 3, loved it, played it to death, played it a bunch of times, and I bought the collector's edition for Fallout 4, and I'm super excited for it. One of my most anticipated games ever, and like the entire Fallout community were just losing the marbles over Fallout 4 about to release. And the way the junk works in the game basically messed up my internal OCD. So I didn't play it again. I played for several hours, walked off outside of the main quest area, and I just didn't touch it again. And then I thought, with this, next gen upgrade, I'm actually going to give it a chance. And I'm loving Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is phenomenal. Been playing it in 4K 60 mode. It just got a brand new update, so you can actually change not just the frame rate, but also the resolution scaling. And if you want, hey, do you want to set it to 60 FPS and 4K, but do you want it to prioritize graphics or frame rate? And I've been prioritizing graphics at 60 frames per second, and I've had no issues, which is really good. Like, Logan, did you play Fallout 4? Have you? Or if you haven't, are you looking forward to trying out the next gen upgrade?
Yeah, I played Fallout 4 at launch and I beat it and I got all the expansions, but I had waited. I had heard that there was gonna be, a next gen upgrade at some point, so I kind of just waited to jump into the expansions until the upgrade came, and now that it's here and it's been updated again to fix the patches, along with the new missions and armor and content and frame modes and everything with the Creators Club, I'm definitely going to jump back in. Fallout hype is like all time high right now, and I think Xbox realizes that as well. And yeah, it is the perfect time to dive in, and I will soon.
Yeah, for me, it's basically a new game. Before we continue, we have the first super chat of the day. Thank you very much by Nick W for $5. He says, my only issue with Fallout 4 is the story isn't that great. I mean, I've only been doing the side content. That's just what I'm like with open world games. I will say this, though. The amount of hours I've spent in the game so far compared to Fallout 3, I think Fallout 3 crushes Fallout 4. Just
I agree.
the story pacing is much better. I just like, plus I like the setting of the wasteland in Fallout 3. But yeah, I have to agree. Fallout 4, I think people may play Fallout 4 for its open world and its side quests, much like how Skyrim is a phenomenal game, but Oblivion has a better main story. Like
Oh, absolutely.
if you play Skyrim, you're gonna play for the side quests and all the optional stuff you can do. But like Skyrim's main story is just not that good. But Oblivion's main story is phenomenal. And I think, Nick W is right. It's kind of like that for me with Fallout 3 and 4 so far. But yeah, I agree. Fallout 4, and the way the dialogue works in the game is more like Mass Effect as opposed to Fallout, which I know some fans had a big issue with, but they were just trying something different, and you can tell that when they made Starfield, they moved away from that and went back to the whole Bethesda way of making dialogue options, which again some people like, some people dislike, but hey, I'm up for trying new things in these games. But thank you very much for the $5, Nick W. But Fallout 4's open world is great. I will say this: we are meant to be getting the Fallout 3 remaster slash remake at some point. I would be completely happy if we could somehow get Fallout 3 with even Fallout 4 visual fidelity. That
Yeah,
would be
that'd be
great.
great.
And, we're going to talk about this later on when it comes to like the game industry stuff, but, graphics in video games, it's flashy graphics. It's nice to look at these pretty games, but I've begun to realize more and more over time that does it really matter? You know, these video games take years and years to make, and you know, a AAA game now will take anywhere between 5 to 6 years to develop. But I was playing Fallout 4 before, and I realized, you know, the skin texture on these characters doesn't look good at all. But I don't really care. You know, the gameplay is good, the open world looks good, and you know, I think this is one of the big problems with the game industry at the minute. And you know, people, it's that you have these game developers making these super realistic looking games, and people want the biggest open worlds with, you know, 4K 60, you know, 4K textures, ray tracing, all the latest Unreal Engine 5 features. And these games are just costing way too much to develop. They take way too long to develop, and we're getting less games per generation now. You know, back on 360 and PS3, we were getting multiple games a generation in the same franchise. We got 3 Batman games that generation, 3 Bioshock games, 3 Mass Effect games. And what did we get this generation? We had, well, the past generation we had 1 Mass Effect game, which I'll say less about because I want people to enjoy that game if they enjoy it. You know, we've had no Bioshock games and we've had 1 Batman game. What the hell? You know, some people don't like it when I say this, and I truly mean this. If the entire video game industry decided to just go back to, I'd say, end of life 360, you know, visual fidelity across the board, I'd be completely fine with it. You know, the graphics don't make a game; it's the gameplay, it's the story. Anyway, just a bit of a tangent. We've got way too much to talk about. Let's get into it because, again, we've got like 20 topics. Now, Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be debuted tomorrow. What we know about the game so far, there's going to be 2 protagonists. They've kind of done this thing before. Obviously going to be set in Japan. They've been teasing it all over the place. This is meant to be the last action role-playing game in the entire franchise. I kind of like the idea that we're finally going to Japan. People have been wanting Japan for a very long time. And I think, you know, after Mirage showed fans, like, hey, that's what we want for Assassin's Creed, but, you know, have a decent story and all that stuff. I think Assassin's Creed's in a weird place at the minute because some people got burnt out of, you know, Origins and Odyssey going, and especially Valhalla. This being the final RPG, apparently, I think it's going to be a good move. And it moving to Japan, I'm personally looking forward to. Like, Logan, are you looking forward to seeing Assassin's Creed Shadows?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it and see how in depth they go for like Japan. Like, is this gonna be like hardcore, like feudal, like samurai era type stuff, or like what exactly kind of narratives they're spinning and combat and styles and stuff. But overall, like to be honest, I'm a little burnt out on Assassin's Creed. So I'll probably wait on it for a bit,
Yeah.
but the fact that it is in Japan and something different does make me more interested than if it was yet another European or Middle Eastern narrative for Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, you know, before we continue, we have another super chat by Bradward Fight for, I think that's $2.79. I think that's Canadian. We got Call of Duty and underperforming Final Fantasy. Yeah, we'll be talking about all that stuff later on the show, but it is an interesting time with, you know, you have some of the biggest franchises on the planet. You know, even if they like locked to one console, you'd think they would still do better than they are. But just the landscape where we're in at the minute, and let's face it, everyone that says they're going to buy a game, they don't. That's not even a platform warring thing. People just say stuff online because they want to get by and, you know, maybe get some likes, but like people will say they're going to buy a game and then they don't. And that's every platform, people do that. Human nature is a fickle thing, and that leaks into gaming. And plus, you know, the whole gaming industry, again, we'll be talking about this later on, it's a mess. You know, it will get better, by the way. Again, no doom and gloom today. The game industry will heal. It's just the gaming industry is in this weird teething phase. And, you know, I called out this before the podcast started, where you have all these issues with Sony, embrace the Take Two, and nobody's really talking about it much. And then when Microsoft has issues, it's the end of the world. I've seen literal clickbait that's literally says Xbox dead, and just stuff like that. And it's like the whole industry's going through a mess at the minute, and it's kind of sad that you have these industry professionals that are just pretending that it's not really a thing, and they just talk about Xbox and clickbait Xbox, and it's boring. It's boring, and let's be honest, they're being disingenuous when they do that. The whole game industry is in a colossal mess, which we have to talk about, and we will talk about later. But to say it's just Xbox, these people are lying to themselves. But yeah, back on with the Assassin's Creed thing. A lot of people are getting burned out on Assassin's Creed. It's one of my favorite franchises, but it's just we get the same thing over and over again, and then moving to the action RPG side of things with Assassin's Creed Origins was a good move at the time, but I'd rather have a 30-hour or 40-hour game with a really good story as opposed to a 90-hour Assassin's Creed game with a story that never ends. Like Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood have 30-hour. They're basically 20 to 30 hours long. They have memorable stories with memorable characters. And then the past few Assassin's Creed games, the main story is boring. And the main story is meant to be the meat and potatoes of the game. Like that shouldn't be the most forgetful part. The gameplay is good in Odyssey, in Origins, but like the main story, super weak. Super weak. But where Mirage actually succeeded was the gameplay. They put a proper throwing knife in the game, which I've been asking since 2007. And the gameplay in Mirage is phenomenal. Like, literally phenomenal in that game. It just, they needed to have a better story. And I think the story that was there was good, but we need more focused stories in Assassin's Creed that like Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood feature historical characters, and that's what makes the games interesting. Origins and Odyssey, great games, but I felt like they were lacking the whole historical aspect, especially with, you have these games set in different periods of time. Take advantage of it. Let us interact with people from history. Like, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird point for me because I love Assassin's Creed. It's one of my favorite franchises, but like I think some people just get way too burnt out on it, and having so many, like, there's like 20 to 30 studios that make these games, and they get them out and they polished, but they just need a different direction for a few years and make the franchise feel like an Assassin's Creed game again. Anyway, that's it for Assassin's Creed. But hey, we find out on I think it's Wednesday. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at the date. So on Wednesday, we're getting the full CGI reveal. I know some people don't like CGI reveals, but at least it gives you a tone of what the characters look like and what they're going to use. But anyway, we're getting a trailer. Now, Logan, I know you want to talk about Night Dive Studios. They're known to make these really good remasters / remakes. What's going on over there?
Oh, yeah, this will be brief. I wanted to, we always talk about the big studios and like some of the, major stuff going on, but I feel like a lot of the smaller developers are making great stuff lately. And so I just, wanted to toss them a bone and say that Night Dive is one of my favorite studios, smaller studios out there. They're like the preeminent remaster remake studio along with Bluepoint. Like everything I've played from them has been fantastic. They do really, really excellent work. And they have two games coming out within a couple weeks of each other this month. So I thought we would highlight that briefly. They have first off is PO'd Definitive Edition. It's a game that came out in like the early 90s and had a PS1 port as well, where you play as this chef and your ship crash landed and was attacked by aliens, and aliens killed your crew, and so your character's PO'd about it, and you go off and you just go roughshod over these aliens with like kitchen equipment and all kinds of bizarre guns. The game is like a just acid trip. It makes no sense. The enemies are wild designs. It's really just a crazy game, and it's another reason why I love Night Dive is because this is a game that probably not that many people played or were familiar with, but it stood out to those who did. And you know what? This game deserves a refresh, and it's truly unique, and it should be preserved so that more people can experience the creative diversity of the industry and what people can do when, they just go hog wild with creativity. So that comes out the 16th, so this week, very soon. And then their System Shock remake finally comes to console, you know, May 20 something. And so I'm super excited for that as well. Have been waiting years to play it. And so just great time for fans of that era of games and remakes, remasters, and yeah, go support good people.
Yeah, PO does look good, and I never played that game. I don't even know if I was born at that point, but it looks really cool. And I think Night Dive, they've proven they can, put a lot of work into these remasters. Like the Star Wars game that launched in February, that game looks phenomenal. And
Oh,
they,
Dark Forces,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Dark Forces, that looks really good. Um, it just makes me want to rant about Aspire. By the way, like they had to remaster. I'm doing air quotes, by the way. Remaster the Battlefront collection, and they did nothing with those games. And then you have Night Dive Studio that they get next to like 0% like talk because they basically self funded, and like I don't know, like they need to get the work. They need to get more Star Wars games to remaster because I'm still heartbroken over Battlefront. Like, how do you release the Battlefront games and they're broken? There wasn't crossplay. They had 3 servers, so only like 180 people could play at any given time, which it's mind-boggling. Like, what were they thinking? Um, Anyway, a bit of a rant, but yeah, PO'd, it looks good. Night Dive Studios, the proven studio, they can really put a lot of work into these remasters, and I hope they get more work from like 90s era shooters like Shadows of the Empire. I think that could do with a touch up. Basically, take any Star Wars game from the 90s and early 2000s. Uh, they'll do wonders with it. They're a really good studio. And System Shock Remake, that has a bunch of quality of life features that has been added since the PC version came out last year. And it's also going to have a reworked ending. Now, I haven't played the PC version, but apparently the reworked ending is really good. So there's that as well. But yeah, Night Dive Studios, an actually good development studio. Now, okay, Resident Evil. We'll quickly get over this. Resident Evil, it seems like we're getting a brand new game every single year now. But Capcom's on a roll. They've pretty much done no wrong. Not really, outside of slightly tease people about um, Dino Crisis last year, or might have been the year before, with Exo Primal.
Oh,
Um,
that was such a
yeah,
punk move.
yeah.
That made me so mad.
Yeah, slowly panning a camera past a person that looks exactly like the main character from Dino Crisis. Um, but they'll get there one day. But yeah, it looks like we're getting one Resident Evil game per year, or at least almost each every year. And the Resident Evil 9 game is coming out apparently in January, which will also feature Leon. And apparently in 2026 we're getting the Resident Evil remake in RE Engine. And I've been saying for years, I don't think that first game needs a remake. It really doesn't. I think the whole like tank control thing kind of works in that game's favor because you have these like tight corridors and that like small mansion. But hey, it's Capcom. They've done a really good job the past few years. As long as it's good, Logan, what's your thoughts on this? Because remaking a remake is a bit of a weird thing for me, but I think it was inevitable considering how big these Resident Evil games are now.
Yeah, this one, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on. Like, on one hand, just last week we had our episode, and I was basically talking about how I thought Sony, like, ridiculously kind of just, bled a stone dry with The Last of Us, pour, put out and then remaster and then remake, just like bam, bam, bam. But this to me feels a little bit different because this was originally a PS1 and Sega and just old game, original Resident Evil. And then it got ports, and then it got remastered for GameCube, and then it got like a Wii version, and then it got upscaled HD stuff for Xbox One and PS4 and stuff like that. But to me, like, a remake of the remake would imply more of a stylistic and like mechanical adjustments to it, and maybe flesh out the story more like they did in Resident Evil 2 remake than the first go around of revisiting this game. So I'm okay with it because again, this is a game from like before I was even allowed to play it. So it's a very older title. And the fact that they've already remastered or modernized all the other entries in the series, except for Code Veronica, which needs it, and then this one and Zero, which I'm not sure if they will ever revisit or not. I I'm on the hill of that is actually a fun Resident Evil. I know there's only like a dozen of us on that hill, but I did like Resident Evil Zero. So yeah, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I'm on that hill with you. I thought Resident Evil Zero was great. I had that.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a good game, and the best part of that game was the train section, like which
Oh,
was
100%.
basically like the first half of the game or whatever. And like to have a Resident Evil game, it sounds like a weird concept because trains aren't that wide. So you had this like Resident Evil game, which essentially took place on a train, and it just works. You go forward one carriage, there's a key, and it unlocks a drawer, and you find a crank that opens up like a statue. Like it worked on a train, even though it shouldn't have. Um, they have to get to that at some point, and at least it's good you can play all those games on like modern consoles. But man, Resident Evil Zero just deserves it. I know whenever Resident Evil remakes like get talked about, Zero never gets mentioned, and I don't know why. Like I feel like it was a really good game. Like was it not liked at the time, or I don't know. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Code Veronica gets all the love, and Code Veronica is a great game, but oh my, like Resident Evil Zero is genuinely good. Like you have Raccoon City going all off to hell, but you have this beginning to open up where you have basically a demon that controls these like insects. Like, uh, again, it doesn't make sense, but it works. And for the love of God, please get to Dino Crisis one day. like,
Oh, 100%.
like how can you have those games just sit there and not remake them? Like it's let's be honest, those games are essentially Resident Evil games, but instead of zombies, you have velociraptors. Right? That's literally it. They literally copied their own formula, and it works. There's dinosaurs. You run away from them. It's cool, and it just seems like easy money. I don't think people will get burnt out on a new Resident Evil game every year or so, but just something different would be nice. Man, and the thing is, Capcom can make really good games now. Everyone can see what they make. Their portfolio is bloody brilliant. But like, we want some dinosaurs. Like, I think when Exo Primal was first revealed, people kind of took a step back and thought, "Is this really what we're getting when it comes to dinosaurs?" And it's a fun game, but it's no Dino Crisis. Let's get into a topic I've really been wanting to talk about. Excuse me. Xbox 360. They finally shutting down the 360 servers in July, And it's going to be a sad day because the Xbox 360s will be the Xbox 360 will be 19 years old at that point. Or at least close to 19 years old. And I think they should have kept on, they should have kept the store open. But I can't imagine how many people are still on the 360 as it is. But anyway, they're shutting down the store on the console, and it's a sad day because I like playing old games, and there's so many games still stranded on those platforms, on the old platform. Well, it turns out Microsoft just all of a sudden start hosting this sale for Xbox 360 games that are only available on 360. Now, as someone that covers 360 and Xbox in general, I can tell you this: they rarely have sales like this. Rarely. And I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 times in the past 5 years where they've actually held a sale for people that are on 360 still buying those games. So it is a weird move that all of a sudden there's, let me see, there's a list of about 60 odd games that are on sale, some of which are for less than about $1, right? Less than £1. You can buy the Assassin's Creed, sorry, not Assassin's Creed, Rise of the Tomb Raider Xbox 360 version for £7. That game is literally a technical marvel. The fact that they got that running on a 360, and it still looks phenomenal, by the way. And it's just a bit weird that they having this sale, and you could say it's because they're shutting down the store soon and all that stuff, which that may be the case. But there's been all the rumors in the past 6-7 months that there could be potentially another backwards compatible batch, which we'll get into in a little bit. Logan, do you think it's a bit weird that this store sale's going on? Because again, 360 store sales rarely happen.
Yeah, like as someone who is, like you followed 360 stuff and Xbox stuff for a long time, and these sales rarely happen, especially for games that aren't BC. And during the heart and height of the backwards compatibility program, when it was cranking out stuff every week, um, occasionally a hint of a game going BC was it would appear randomly on sale. And you'd be like, huh, interesting. This game is randomly on sale. It has not been on sale in quite some time. It didn't always mean it was going, but oftentimes a game would go on sale and not long after, or maybe that week, it would appear as backwards compatible. And so that came to my mind when I first saw that, and I was like, huh, interesting. It's been a long, long time since I've seen this. And then, um, the store is closing, so this is a great, goodwill gesture for, like, look, for those who want to, cash in and get all the 360 titles they can, or OG Xbox games. I think there might be a few thrown in there as well. Um, that are not currently BC before the store shuts down. Have at it. You can, just all you eat buffet kind of thing. So it does pique my curiosity. It could simply just be, stores closing and they're just, it's a goodwill gesture. But following past behavior and, the trends and the buzz that, that there could be one final batch to, send off the store and usher in Activision Blizzard King as part of Xbox and finally make things right about Quake 4, Quake Wars, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein '09. Some of these games made by one studio, but for some reason a different publisher owned part of the rights to it, so it was divided between like three companies, and now everybody's in one empire, to where that's no longer an issue. Like, I personally just think it's heading that way, and it will happen, and they will make some things right.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the sale list right now, and there's a ton of games on sale, but I'll just name a few off. So the Xbox 360 version of Watch Dogs, £4.99. Again, that game was like pushing the 360 to its limits. Tomb Raider $4.99, Rise of the Tomb Raider $7.99. Let me see. This was a good game back on 360. MX versus ATV Supercross. I put a crap load of time into that back in the day, and that is 624. But yeah, like just the prices of these games like super low because a lot of these prices haven't dipped in years. Like some of these games were full price up until recently, which is crazy considering the 360 games. You have Alien Rage, which is 83 pence. Gothic 4, which is £3.74. So it is a random list, and the thing about 360 games back in the day is that just because a game released, it didn't mean it was available digitally. So that's why the list is a bit sporadic. Not everything was available. So some games you're just going to have to get on disc at some point, which is a bit of a shame. The Xbox 360 version of Far Cry 4 is available still, which I only just found out yesterday. So, hey, if people want to go nuts and they still have 360s lying about, why not? I think it would be a nice way to send off the 360 with having a batch. There's been the rumors of the Activision batch happening next month, but I think Microsoft they should have at least made the 360 store stay open till at least 2025. Get the 20th anniversary out of the way, and then close the store down on the console. But I mean, I don't know the logistics behind keeping a 20-year-old digital console store, online. I can't even imagine what that's like. But hey, the games are available, a lot on sale. I think there's a Splinter Cell game that's about £2 as well. But hey, go nuts. I just hope we do see something soon. Logan, do you think you'll be picking anything up while they're still available?
I might. I will further dive into the list later, but I kind of did a cursory glance earlier. Like several of them I already own, like Black Knight. I remember I bought once upon a time, and there were a few others, but I'll jump in.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the sad thing is about 360s is that those consoles were like ridiculously impressive when it came to feature sets. Even after we all had Xbox Ones, I think it was in 2017 or 18 or something, Microsoft added the ability to use an external hard drive on a 360. It was just like a random update one day, which nobody expected, and it's like we finally got that feature, like almost a decade after the 360 release. So I think it would be a good time to plug in a spare, maybe 200 gig hard drive or whatever. And back then, games were about 2 gigabytes. So you're going to be able to get a lot of 360 games on them. The only downside is that my 360 I've had plugged in since 2010. I've got an Xbox 360 Slim, so like you have to make sure those things are looked after because I've tried finding new Xbox 360s in box, and let me tell you, people try to rip you off. I tried to buy a fun anecdote. I tried to buy a still in box 360 off someone, and they wouldn't go down from $2,000. Yeah. Like, I was adamant, I'm going to get an inbox 360, and plus I can make content with that. And yeah, $2,000 for inbox 360. My eyeballs nearly popped out of my sockets. But yeah, people, take care of your Xbox 360s. There's some really cool gems on that system. Now we'll move on. Today we had a huge Game Pass drop. So I'll go over the list quickly. We have NHL 24. There's Chance of Sanat, Haunty, Humanity, Moving Out 2, Rolling Hills, Galactic Care, Immortals of Avon, Lords of the Fallen, HellBlade 2, and Firework. Pretty cool list. We tend to get 2 lists per month. That's actually a damn good list. Now, I'll go over what they are quickly. So NHL, obviously hockey. Haunty is a 2D side-scrolling kind of Metroidvania style game. Humanity is actually one of the cool ones this month, where it's basically Lemmings, but in 3D, and you play as this ghost dog while controlling armies of people. It sounds like something made up by someone on acid, and it probably was. But it looks really cool. I think people should play it. Moving Out 2, it's one of those fun co-op games. Same with the Rolling Hills, which looks really good. Lords of the Fallen. Now, I got that game for Christmas. That game is hard as nails. But it got a bunch of quality of life features. There's even modifiers, so you can make the game easier or harder if you want. And I will say easier with air quotes. The game is still going to be brutal, but it's one of the most impressive games this generation when it comes to its use of Unreal Engine 5, because it loads two worlds in the same space simultaneously, and you press one button and you can move back and forth between them. It's a really cool game mechanic, and it's something we haven't really seen in a very long time on this scale. Immortals of Avon is a first-person shooter, but you play as this kind of warlock dude. It's hard to explain, but it's a first-person shooter with magic, and it's actually really cool. I think a lot of people need to give that a chance. It was a brand new IP which cost over $100 million, and it failed. It didn't sell that well, but it got next to zero promotion. It had a bunch of issues going for it when it came to the whole marketing and all that stuff, but it's a really cool game, and I think it's good that people can give it a proper go this time. Galactic Care is kind of like Theme Hospital, but on a starship, which really interests me. You obviously have HellBlade, which everyone knows what HellBlade is, but Logan, what's your thoughts on this month's Game Pass drop?
Honestly, think this is a really good batch. I already have some of these, and plan to purchase other ones, but it it definitely gives me a chance to try some that I was curious about. Like Chance of Sonar, I have seen several times, and it has looked very intriguing to me. Kind of this like philosophical, like secret society, quasi religious, like explorative game, and it looks super interesting. Haunty, I'm really digging the art style of. It's one I want to dive into more. Humanity really got my attention at that PlayStation showcase when they first debuted it a few years ago. I was like, huh, it was during one of those indie reels that they do. And I was like, I'll keep an eye on this one. I like what I'm seeing here. Moving Out 2, sequel to Moving Out, and that's a fun kind of human fall flat, but you're a moving truck company. Rolling Hills, I really don't know anything about. Immortals of Avon is kind of like a modern day Hexen type game, which is definitely awesome. And I think it's a massive bummer that the studio basically, you know, collapsed because of it, because it just honestly, I we talk about the pricing all the time, and it probably gets on people's nerves, but I do think the price point on a brand new IP from a newer studio that's unproven, that had a co-publishing deal with EA, was not a great idea. And I think it did play a part in what happened with that. But I'm glad it's on Game Pass now, so more people will feel comfortable to play it. Lords of the Fallen, I had the original one. It's a very interesting Souls like game. I'm curious to check out this remake. And Senua, obviously, day one for that. And then Firework, it's PC, so I'm probably just not going to play it. But power to the PC folks.
Yeah, I'll talk about Immortals briefly because, like you said, it released at a really weird time. That game launched, I think it was a week before Starfield, and I think a day before Armored Core 6. So
That's just a clown show.
yeah, and I think Sea of Stars came around at the same time. So like, it was put in the worst position. Like EA has this weird thing about releasing games that they like market a lot at the worst possible time. It's like, hey, we've got this brand new, military first-person shooter with mechs. When should we launch it? Should we launch it at the beginning of the year when there's nothing else really like in competition with it, or should we launch it between Call of Duty and Battlefield? and they launched it between Call of Duty and Battlefield, and it's like I don't understand like who actually controls these these decisions at these like huge billion-dollar corporations, because like even one of the developers from Immortals of Aveum said like we should have maybe have released early on the following year, like earlier this year, and I think it would have done really good if it launched in maybe January. But like you said, the price, I think launching a $70 game, brand new IP, it being a Magic first person shooter, it really hurt the game. And like also like you said, the studio is basically a shell of itself now. It's a skeleton crew. There's basically stability updates and features and stuff. And apparently they want to continue making like games in this universe, which I hope they do. They can iron out a lot of the flaws, which there aren't really many. It's a fun game. It's a big game, a lot bigger than I thought it would be. But their initial premise was, hey, it's a Call of Duty campaign, but instead of snipers, you have mages, and instead of helicopters, you've got dragons flying around. Like, it's a really cool concept, something we haven't really seen before. I'm just happy more people can play it now, but I think that studio is basically the poster child of launching a AAA game in the modern age, the way they did, being a bad thing. Brand new IP, interesting concept, $70 price tag, launching before one of the biggest games of the year. Like, what were they thinking? And there was marketing all over the place in the UK for that. It was on the sides of buses, bus stops, all this stuff. There's trailers on TV all the time. Like I'd be interested to see how much marketing they actually put into the game when it comes to like dollar value. It must be like close to $100 million. Just the way it was on TV constantly. It was at several different game showcases. I think they showed 5 minutes of gameplay at Summer Games Fest or something like that. Weird, but hey, people can play it now. It's a really cool first-person shooter, and if people want something that's different, like, if you really think about it, we don't get Magic first-person shooters often. And in the first-person shooter space, we don't really get many first-person shooters now. You get Call of Duty every year, you get Battlefield once every 3 years, and let's face it, they mess it up whenever they release it. We get a Halo game once every 5 years, so it's like, it is refreshing to see something like that, but yeah. Shame about the studio. Again, cool concept. And HellBlade, and that's launching 1 week from now. And that game looks phenomenal. They actually showed off some of the photo mode today, and I have to say that's probably got the best photo mode I've ever seen in a game. You can mess around with like the position of all the characters in stills. You can also change lighting sources. Like most photo modes let you deal with the focal distance and camera effects, but like being able to mess around with things that completely change lighting and images, I love that. I think over the next few months, that's pretty much what you're going to see online constantly, just people mess around with photo mode. Like Starfield released last September, and there's people like they specifically play Starfield to mess with the photo mode because it's that good. I think that it's really cool, but hey, Game Pass, a lot of cool stuff coming. I think there's something there for everyone. You know what? Let's talk about Square Enix. I've been putting this topic off for as long as possible. Do I sound giddy? Maybe. Am I smiling? Possibly. And the sad part is, and we'll get the sad part out of the way first, Square Enix is also laying off developers and staff. And that's unfortunate. Again, the game industry is a very fickle place at the minute. But anyway, so Square Enix is having to shift around their business plans, and they are moving to a full-on multi-platform strategy that includes Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, and PC for HD titles. That's basically what Square Enix refers to as AAA titles, and SD titles, which is smaller titles, will be on, mobile, console, and PC. So it looks like Xbox is finally going to start getting Final Fantasy games again, mainline titles, which it's been a long time coming. And you'd think, that's really positive news. More gamers getting to play more games on their favorite platform. It's a win-win scenario. PlayStation gamers continue to get their favorite games. Xbox gamers get to play Final Fantasy games. Nobody in this scenario literally loses anything. However, there's people on the internet today. They did not take this news kindly. They lost their marbles. They did, big time. And like I won't even say what I've seen today, but I've seen some outlandish stuff wrote on Twitter in the past 24 hours. And this is off good news, by the way. Good gaming news, which I think a lot of people have been needing. You know, people keep claiming that it's the end of Xbox and that we're not going to get third-party games anymore. And you have Square Enix, one of the most anti-Xbox companies on earth, and they committing to putting third-party AAA titles on the platform. So again, people don't need to worry about that. But anyway, people were losing the marbles. Square Enix has been kind of de facto exclusive with PlayStation for the past several years when it comes to some AAA titles. And on Xbox, like, you get the scraps, right? We get the scraps. We get the one-off, side game like Crisis Core Reunion, which I will talk about all day and say how amazing it is. But then we'll get something like, The Divine Force, which came out a few years ago. Again, that game was fun, but it looks like a 360 game. And then we get Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Again, a random offshoot, Final Fantasy game, which, by the way, that game is broken on Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. If you go to the store page, everyone's complaining that's bought it that the game is broken, and Square Enix refuses to update the game. So if people keep bringing up sales numbers of that game specifically, it's broken. Square Enix won't patch it. Yeah, it's still on the Xbox store. But outside of that, we get the scraps, and we always get told that, hey, Jamie, it's all cool, but what about the resources? What about Square Enix getting the money back? What about Xbox guys not buying games? It's like, how can I buy the bloody games if they don't put them on the platform? And the ones that they do put on there are either A, broken, B, genuinely bad, or C, I do buy them, and then what am I supposed to do? Just tell Square Enix on Twitter, hey, I bought your game. That doesn't work. And people shouldn't feel obligated to buy games they don't want to because they think it may help future games come to the platform. No, nobody should do that. Be safe with your own money. Don't do that. I've done that in the past and got burnt by buying crap games I didn't want to think I was supporting a publisher for future games. It doesn't work. Now, I need to breathe. Logan, what was your initial thought on all this Square Enix nonsense?
Well, my first thought was I smiled really big and I thought, I told you so. Was basically, and I thought of our good friend Octavian Sixer, who and the poor begging community who have been waiting for this day for a very, very long time and have been in the trenches every day online on all these posts on Xbox port this, or what about this, or hey, are you going to do this, or yeah, actually we do buy these, and then you pull out the receipts and you have a catalog of like 100 plus Japanese type games, and you're like, yeah, we do buy these on Xbox. You put them on here, we will buy them, we will play them, and just continually dunking on clown takes all the time. I just I had fond recollection of that, and just this was a victorious day, a great day. And obviously, you never want to see layoffs, and that's awful. And I am very sad for that, and I hope they land on their feet somewhere else quickly and soon. And I am no way jumping for joy about that at all. That's horrible, and I hope that gets resolved soon. But as for the changing of strategy, yes, it's a huge deal. And there's a big difference between a third party publisher that is not owned by another company, self owning them, or, falling on their own face and making terrible deals with publishers to put games exclusive on one platform and then repeatedly fail to meet expectations, don't reach sales margins, the fan bases are divided or angry or there's animosity, and then it breeds avatar, anime avatar Twitter accounts going after people just randomly for wanting to play a game from a publisher that's not owned by somebody. It's different if, you know, I would love Heavenly Sword to be on Xbox. It was made by Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory is owned by Xbox now. But I know there's no point or no reason to, spam PlayStation and go like, hey, bring this to Xbox, do this, do this. It was made a PlayStation exclusive, PlayStation IP. I get that. That's different than, a full-fledged third-party publisher just taking a bag and making a bad deal and screwing over the fan base. So, great news that they finally come to their senses that everything is going to be multi-plat going forward. And I think this is the clear sign yet that we will get Final Fantasy VII and the rest of that trilogy. And maybe they go back and bring some other games from the last decade that weren't on Xbox for, quote, reasons. And they make the whole community whole.
Yeah, I will say this. I've got specific tweets in my drafts that will go live the second some news comes available during Xbox's Summer Showcase. Just putting that out there. It's yeah. The thing is, I like telling people I told you so. The truth is, everyone likes that, right? Everyone likes saying I told you so. But I've never understood the whole Final Fantasy gatekeeper mentality, right? You want your fan base to not
Psycho.
Yeah, it's psycho. You don't want your fan base to get any bigger. Okay, then explain why Persona is a bigger franchise than it's ever been. Explain why Yakuza is a bigger franchise than it's ever been. And bear in mind, all those titles didn't specifically launch in Game Pass. Atlas is coming out with 2 games on Xbox this year that aren't coming to Game Pass, and everyone's fine with it. And I think they'll sell well. And by the way, whenever you talk about Final Fantasy coming to Xbox or how it should, these people that say Japanese games don't sell on Xbox, they like to leave out the fact that Elden Ring sold on Xbox. They like to leave out the fact that Dragon's Dogma 2 sold really well on Xbox. Like in the UK, I think it was at number 1 and number 3 on the top charts for I think 2 weeks. And that's like Dragon's Dogma is a hardcore game. Like it's not easy. Damn fun though, really fun. But like it's a good sign that these Japanese games are doing good on Xbox, and the Final Fantasy franchise is just selling less and less each time. And before we continue, another super chat by Nick W for $5. Thank you very much. He says Persona and Yakuza are much better than Final Fantasy. I mean, that is an interesting topic. I will say this: my time with Persona 3 Reload and 4, I've loved every second of it. My time with we can throw Judgment in with the Yakuza franchise. I think Judgment, the first one, is possibly one of the best games I've ever played, and I'd say better than Final Fantasy games, albeit different. But like Judgment is probably in my top 25 best games of all time. It is so good. Just the storytelling, everything about it, the fact that there's no grinding at all. I don't have to grind in that game. Perfectly fine. There's no insane difficulty spikes. Persona's music is just perfect. Very poppy, but it just works with the vibe. And like I've loved Final Fantasy since I was a kid. I think that they put too much into the whole like, hey, this next game has to be fantasy setting, another fantasy setting. Oh, look at this, another fantasy setting. And at least with Persona, they do things with sci-fi a bit. Shin Megami Tensei comes out in uh, next month. Like that's got some sci-fi vibes to it, but like Final Fantasy, I feel like it sticks to the same thing every single time, outside of 7 and 12. Um, well, and we can throw 8 in there as well, but like Yakuza and Persona, I think they've proven themselves. They have a huge, like, those games are selling better now than they did years ago, and they have bigger fan bases now. So you could technically say that those games are better than Final Fantasy. I mean, the sales go, and show that. But yeah, uh, I may have to agree, especially with Judgment being freaking phenomenal. Um, I think that, like, Logan, do you prefer Final Fantasy over Persona, or have you not played much of Persona yet?
Well, I haven't fully dived in enough into the personas to like have a great opinion one way or another on their stacking, but I have had extensive experience with Final Fantasy growing up. From our era, Super Nintendo, PS1 and 64, PS2, Final Fantasy 7, 10, um, X2, just there are some truly iconic characters and stories and worlds and like staples of gaming that came from that franchise and those generations that I just feel personally are hard to top. I like Persona and I plan on once the expansions drop for 3 remake, jumping in and playing through 3, playing through 4, and playing through 5 Royal. But as of this moment, there's something about the older Final Fantasies that just really ring true to me. So I would go with that, but I definitely don't begrudge somebody who would put Persona above because they have been S tier. Like all of their recent releases have been received well, loved, sold crazy well, been marketed great, and they actually gave a flying flip about Xbox when Square couldn't care less. So that I think does count for something.
Yeah, and I will say this: I've never had a single bug with a Persona game. They've all worked flawlessly. And what, since Xbox Series X, in like Persona 3, Persona 4, 5, like flawless. 4K 60, not even like bugs in general, which is kind of rare these days. Um, but yeah, the whole like Final Fantasy gatekeepers, I've never understand, because like these people can see their entire like franchise and fan base get smaller every single year, and like I've never understood like Sony buying these like the rights to these games. Like, what does it do for them? Like, really, like, is there like that many people going out to buy a $600 console or $550 console, because it went up in price over here? Like, how many people are going out to buy a whole new console for a third party exclusive? Like, I just don't understand that mentality. Um, and like the sales, like Square Enix, like their sales never meet expectations. They have lofty expectations, and this is going back to the 360, the original Tomb Raider reboot. Like that didn't sell what they wanted it to, and it also has something to do with the fact that they put $100 million into marketing, which they didn't need to. But that's a story for another day. But Square Enix have this ability to make continuous stupid business choices, and it looks like they're finally learning. And every single post I've ever made about, Square Enix, they should learn from Sega, you should look at the replies. There's people genuinely angry, like I've took something away from them. And that is just bat crap crazy. We've seen all these studios shut down constantly. We've seen people get laid off constantly. We see that the price of these games have absolutely ballooned to astronomical sizes when it comes to development costs. And these people still want to hold on to this little exclusive because what? For namesake? And I think that's what it's really about. It's not that they want their game to only be on PlayStation because, they think the quality might change if the developers have to make for, games for more than one platform. No, it's because they like saying something's exclusive. Right? I see this contingent of people that will talk about Bloodborne all day, but they will not play other From Software games. They won't play Elden Ring. They won't play Dark Souls. Why? Because they're not exclusive. There's this like weird mentality when it comes to like just constantly talking about exclusives, and I've noticed this across the industry over the past like few years. But these same people, they will port beg first party Xbox games. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we can get Halo on Switch? Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we can get Starfield on PlayStation? I'm going to post another Arkham Asylum escapee post either tonight or tomorrow, and it's possibly the dumbest message I've ever received. Like people should stay tuned to this. It's like absolutely stupid. My jaw was on the floor, and like I'm actually impressed with how stupid this message was. But like people just get like all in their feelings about this, and it's like, so like Square Enix, if they continue to make crap business decisions, they're gonna shut down even more studios. They're gonna cancel more games, and people are gonna get less. So it's like you want your fan base to get smaller and get less games because you're what, a child, mentally. And like Square Enix, their business plan has changed completely over the past like month or so because they're no longer going to make smaller games. They're only basically going to make AAA games and the occasional like remaster. So people have already immediately lost out. It's just that more people will get to play these games, and I've already seen a message in chat saying some like, Final Fantasy VII Remake has not been confirmed for Xbox. It hasn't. However, if you look at their business plan going forward, AAA games coming will come to Xbox, and also the games that are coming out by Square Enix are going to be AAA games. They're making less small games. They're banking on the few AAA games they have, and the whole deal between Square Enix and PlayStation, like I don't think that was literally for perpetuity. I think that was literally end of life till the last game sold. I do think Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth and whatever the third one is will come to Xbox at some point. However, I do think 16 will come to Xbox this year. There's just too much money on the table. You'll have these channels that absolutely dwarf mine in size. Say stupid things like, Square Enix wouldn't make the money back off the port. And I'm like, are you dumb? These consoles we have now, the Xbox and PlayStation, they are PCs. That's all they are. They're PCs in fancy cases. People act like these ports for these games cost an astronomical amount, and that porting a game from PlayStation to Xbox and vice versa costs a lot of money, more money than they actually realize it is. And it's like, people are just lying to themselves, or they're dumb. And I think it's just people lying to themselves. People just don't like the idea of Xbox fans or certain games being on Xbox, and this mentality has been going around for 20 plus years now. Back when Final Fantasy 13 was announced for Xbox, NeoGAF, the cesspit of gaming websites, like there were people on that thread that night panicking, literally saying PlayStation's doomed, or I'm going to sell my console. There was people you could tell they were on the brink. I remember a bunch of messages by people were saying my hands are shaking, like just because a game was like on an Xbox stage at E3. These people are just like, they are obsessed. You have these people, by the way, bit of a tangent. Notice some of these people, they have there's this subset of gamers, they have this obsession with Japan, and I've never understood that. It's never like, hey, I'm this gamer and I like Finland, or I like Brazil, or insert any other country. It's always Japan. And they always say that you have to play Japanese games on a Japanese console, but they have no problem buying American games on a Japanese console. Same weirdos. Just putting it out there. It's weird. I just don't get it. It's a strange mentality. But hey, Square Enix, and I hope people are listening, by the way. I hope some of these Arkham Asylum escapees are listening. Square Enix has proven me right that these games need to be multi-platform. They cost way too much to make, and Xbox is literally listed in their business plan going forward. And what's funny is when I've talked about this since, there's people that have literally replied to me saying, no, they mean Nintendo, not Xbox. Despite the fact that Xbox is literally written in print in their business plan. Like, I think I'm getting that eyeball twitch thing. You know, I'm gonna go crazy. Logan, like, you have to admit, like, people taking this personally, just because more people get to play more games, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hysterical, and it's it's really revealing about the maturity or the confidence in things, or people's arrogance, or selfish versus selfless you know views on things, because it's like, again, there's a big old difference between from a platform from one of their internal studios, staying on that platform, versus a game made by some other publisher that for some arbitrary reason was never on other platforms, but then they decide later to bring it over and more people get to experience it. And there's a big difference. And if people don't see that, then I don't know what to tell you. But it yeah, it's hilarious. And hopefully, if somebody from Square actually listens to this, please, I'm begging you, the Pixel remasters, let that be first. That and Octopath Traveler 2. We already know that's coming to Xbox. They said it was this year. TikTok, it's June is almost here, and we still haven't heard a peep again about it. And then the Pixel remasters. I highly doubt there's a thriving, vibrant Fire tablet gaming community, but they got it. Surely one of your first moves for bringing the whole house over to Xbox is to put the Pixel Remaster collection on Xbox. Please, just come on. It's common sense to start there.
Yeah, the Pixel remaster thing, I just don't get. like, like the thriving JRPG community on Kindle tablets, really needed that game. It, no, I refuse to believe that's a thing. it can't be. Like, are the people on Twitter making port begging art, like, oh, bring this JRPG to Kindle tablets? No, there isn't. No, there isn't. I bet there's not one person. In fact, I'm going to look later. I bet there's not one person that I've ever asked for a certain JRPG on Kindle tablets. Maybe iPad, I get it, but Kindle tablets, I refuse to believe that. It's made up, it's false. And I don't think that those Pixel remasters could really take much time to port over. Like, really, I can't code to save my life. I've tried, but I can't do it. I'm guessing I could port them over, right? They are 30-year-old games where you move around pixel dudes and a pixel background. Like, no, just no. It can't be that complicated. It just can't be. It will be interesting though when, like, let's say those games do come over, when they'll actually show up, or should I say where they'll show up on the charts, because people keep saying Xbox guys don't buy Japanese games. But that doesn't explain Dragon's Dogma at all. In fact, the first one keeps showing up in the top 10. And that's a, 11-year-old game, which is crazy. So I think people are all for new games. Final Fantasy VII is a household name. I think a lot of people will be willing to guess, 16. I think it's yeah, I saw the MVG post. Like, I don't want to badmouth any YouTubers. He seems like a solid fella, but I don't think the porting costs of these things will cost that high. Like the pixel remasters, that cost too much to port over. Again, these consoles, we all play PC games. Like this isn't back on 360 where you had, the Xbox 360, which was a power PC. It was basically a fancy Mac in a box made by Microsoft and Intel. You had the PS3, which was a cell architecture thing made by Nvidia and Sony, whoever made it. It was all over the place with the architecture. Our Xbox Ones, our PlayStation 4s, 5s, Xbox Series consoles, it's x86. It's just PCs. And I think it's like ridiculous how like whenever ports get announced or like even talked about, you have these people on Twitter that it's their job sometimes to like put out news and all this stuff, and they'll say, hey, maybe they can put these games on the Switch too, but only come to Xbox if there's enough resources. No, we're not saying that on my watch. What do you mean enough resources? It's not my problem, right? It's Square Enix's job, it's Bandai's job, it's EA's job, it's all these publishers' job to put out a product, let me buy product if I want it, and move forward. And Square Enix is like the one company that just won't. Like, notice all these other companies are still putting Japanese games on Xbox, and they have the resources. They had the resources to put Dragon's Dogma 2 on Xbox. They had the resources to put Elden Ring on Xbox. Games that didn't launch in Game Pass. But no. We can only talk about JRPGs. And I just saw the JRPG scare thing in chat. When that by the way, if people don't know, there was a very JRPG...
Great logo scare.
Yeah, like, oh my god, I want to put my face through the window. Right? It was so bad. So, for people that don't know, a JRPG-centric website, posts JRPG news or whatever. Well, when the Persona 4 and 5, 3 Reload was announced for Xbox, it was announced on the Xbox stage last summer. It was a big deal. It was very good for Xbox fans to have this brand new JRPG announced at an Xbox show. This JRPG website referred to the whole thing being announced as an Xbox logo scare. This person was probably shaking in their little boots. Shaking in their boots that an Xbox logo showed up at the end of this trailer and there was no PlayStation logo. But you don't get that at other showcases. You don't see Xbox logos on PlayStation showcases and vice versa. And like Xbox logo scare. Oh my god, like I just want to facepalm. It was so bad and so cringe. And the fact that people just take this stuff to heart. It's like having these games available on Xbox, that's great. Having these games announced on an Xbox showcase is even better because it actually shows that there's a cool partnership between Xbox and, let's say, Atlas or Sega, because it was never there before. And just that stuff happens and you have people talking about the resources. No. Just no. It's too much. And next time you see someone on Twitter mentioning the whole resource thing, bring them up on it. Because it's BS, right? The ports don't cost that much. And people keep acting like, hey, Final Fantasy VII Remake, it costs, let's say, $100 million to make. So how much does the Xbox port cost? Well, I don't know, $500 billion. Psh. Like, this is the way they act. Anyway, that's me being ranting about Square Enix for half an hour. So that's that segment. But it's just tiring. It's just really tiring. I get told that we don't buy these games, even though when I do and I post pictures of them, people will reply saying, "Oh, well, that's not the entire community." What do you want me to do? Do you want me to send out letters to everyone in the community saying, "Hey, can you post pictures of your games on your console or your physical cases? Can you please just support the Square Enix games, even the ones you don't want, just so you can show them?" Like, it's crazy, and we shouldn't have to do that. Like, hey, buy a crap game just to show support. No, nobody should ever do that on any platform. It doesn't actually work. It just doesn't. I mean, hell, look at Sony with Days Gone. Days Gone sold gangbusters. And do you know why it didn't get a sequel on PlayStation? And I think it's on PC as well. It's because it didn't get a high enough Metacritic score. So buying copies of that,
Insane.
yeah. And by the way, I think they should have made a sequel to that game. That game looked fantastic. But they didn't make a sequel to a game, to a new IP that sold 10 million copies plus because of a Metacritic score. That is batcrap crazy. So I don't want to hear the cost of ports and having to buy games I don't want to show developers and publishers that I want to see more games like that. No. Poppycock. Doesn't make sense. I've had enough of that crap. Anyway, let's move on. I need to breathe. Now, Logan, the summer showcase is just around the corner. It's exciting. Despite all the news and the FUD people see in the news, it's a good time because we're finally getting, little teasers and stuff. Well, it looks like we're going to get a new Doom game announced next month. And the truth is, this game leaked last year. Just people forgot about it. Doom Year Zero. I've tried to hint about it and structure things on Twitter certain ways. And, Tom Warren is blatantly hinted at it. There's going to be a new Doom game announced, and it's probably coming out either late this year or first quarter of next year. What can I say? All I'll say is I'm looking forward to it. Logan, what's your thought on the whole new Doom thing? Because it's pretty much all but confirmed.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for it. I love the Doom universe. I love the Quake universe, and they are linked, stylistically and I believe lore wise in some capacities. So there has been some kind of back and forth debate and buzz about, okay, is this game gonna be a Doom game? Is it gonna be a Quake game? What if it's kind of like, I'll throw out some crazy idea. What if it's kind of like both? It's like they fully just merged them, and it's like a and you've got the Lovecraftian enemies and stuff of Quake mixed with the monsters and stuff from Doom and all the different realms and stuff. Like, what if they kind of just fully bridge everything and make it like that, to make it the year zero, like you're going back? Because Quake always kind of had a medieval vibe with it as well. So, except for the Strogg and the aliens part, which is a whole nother topic. But I don't know, like whatever it ends up being, Quake, Doom, a hybrid, whatever, I'm super stoked for it. That's been registered by Bethesda, the year zero. And they also registered recently a trademark that was a code that was used in either Doom or Quake as a cheat code for something. So they have re-registered that name as to be used for gaming. So whether that's the code name or the new name or some fun tease, but there is something 100% Quake or Doom coming soon. And aside from that, the Gear 6 open secret, I'm excited to see that as well.
Yeah, like the Doom thing. I mean, I've got the leaked document here. It's like an official thing. Like, I won't post it online because I like not being sued. But Doom's happening. Um, I would love to see Quake get the Doom 2016 treatment. Like, it just seems like it's such an obvious move to make, but I think they'll get there eventually. It's been a while since Doom Eternal came out. I think that came out in March 2020, so it's been a while, and I think it's been long enough for them to put out another game. But like Doom Year Zero kind of hints towards a prequel, I guess, because in Doom 2016 and Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, they kind of talk about the original Doom Slayer and all the lore in that, and the stuff in the expansion, which kind of literally talk about that. They're probably gonna let you play as the original Doom Slayer, I'm guessing, before hell opens up on Earth. Which, hey, that could be really cool. I think it's gonna be a good time for Doom fans, and like you said, the whole Quake thing. I think people have been wanting a new Quake game for long enough, and I think if I remember correctly, the last Quake game was Quake Champions on PC, which I think that was like 2017, 2018. So it's been a while as well, and they had a different team making that outside of Doom. I mean, who knows what's going to happen there, but the amount people keep hinting about it, the fact that it literally leaked last year, Doom, it's happening. Just people have to wait less than a month. And when it comes to the whole Gears thing, I know it came out during the whole FTC court case thing that the coalition were working on two other games, and then they shifted, back into Gears. So, like, Gears 6 is a while away. It really is. I don't think we're going to be seeing Gears 6 anytime soon. Obviously, I think we will see it this year in, like, a teaser trailer. And if people remember the certain choices you do make in Gears 5, I don't know how they're going to handle that in, like, let's say Gears 6. Maybe they pick a definitive choice, or they make multiple different, routes and choices and stories throughout the new game. It's going to be weird, especially for, a third-person shooter like Gears. It's an exciting time. It really is. And let me see my list. Okay, Halo. Now, Logan, I know you were talking about the new Halo projects and teasers. What did you want to talk about there?
Oh yeah, there was just like apparently some brief registry stuff about some Halo development stuff going on, and a lot of people were quick to jump to that it might be the Certain Affinity project finally seeing the light of day, or maybe it's a new Halo spin-off or something, but just keep your eyes open that there may be something Halo lurking and coming soon. What it is, we don't know, but there was also that big kind of just random post from Halo the other day, like reintroducing the Halo universe in multiplayer, like almost like trying to attract a new audience. Kind of like, all right, we've been following Halo a while. We know what Halo multiplayer's like and stuff. Like, who exactly are you trying to pitch on this? So it feels like something Halo is going to happen soon.
Yeah. Hold on, I've just got a question in chat. Activision's. I think with all the developers Microsoft has at the minute, and like you have a bunch of like Microsoft's first party first person shooters studios essentially boils down to 343 id Tech in the Call of Duty studios, and Machine Games. Like, I think when it comes to Halo and basically any first person shooter IP they have, they could do anything. I always see id Tech brought up for Halo. Um, I think when it
Oh,
comes,
that'd be sick.
yeah, I think like any combination of whatever they could do, I think would work. Sledgehammer Games, Infinity Ward, like they've all proven they can make good Call of Duty games. What could they do for Halo? Would that work? We don't know. id Tech and I think Machine Games are pretty much those would be my two favorites for something set in the Halo universe. Um, I think just the possibilities are endless, and like you said, the whole Certain Affinity thing. Like they've said they're working on an Xbox IP, and everyone's kind of worked out that it's Halo. I do think this generation we will see Halo content, single player Halo content, while Halo Infinite is continuing to get its multiplayer support. And like Logan, we all see that Halo Infinite didn't launch in the best shape, but the way it is now, they fixed the campaign, it looks great and all that stuff. The multiplayer, people love now. The amount of content they have is ridiculous. They arguably have more content than something like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. And people love Halo now. Like, even big streamers like Dr. Disrespect, like, will play Halo now because it's fun and the content that's there. And people weren't really like that like 3 years ago. Well, could you see a world where we have these single player Halo experiences coming out while Infinite multiplayer is running alongside it?
100%. This might be a crazy, bold, hot take, but what if the plan for Halo going forward is Infinite stands out and stays as the multiplayer experience, and then they have a whole bunch of Halo spin-offs or like single player like chief focused Halo games for campaigns and stuff instead of expansions. And then for multiplayer, everybody just goes to free to play Halo Infinite and they continually update it and expand it and bring new content. What if that is actually the plan?
I think we've both mentioned this before, but I think it would work. You have Warzone that's doing its own thing and that's free to play. Fortnite's gonna go on for like Fortnite came out in the battle royale mode came out in 2017, I think. Like PUBG's still going. Like, do we like next time there's a Halo game? And I know you'll always have these people that say, "Oh, what about Halo 3 and that launch?" Like, we don't live in that era anymore. I don't think like it's necessary to launch. Hey, we had a new Halo game. We're gonna have a new multiplayer experience, and you're gonna shift everyone from the one game to the next. Like, I don't think that works anymore. It barely works for Call of Duty. Like for Modern Warfare 3, which was originally going to be an expansion, they've basically moved over all of the maps from Modern Warfare 2 to 3. So like, there's not really much point to play Modern Warfare 2. You may as well play 3, and there's more content there. But for like Halo, they can let's say Halo 6. I'm just gonna call Halo 6. If they say Halo 6 is just campaign and maybe firefight, I would have no problem with that, as long as they're still putting out content for multiplayer people. We don't need a new multiplayer thing, and I've been saying the same thing about Call of Duty. Like, this is how Call of Duty works in the modern age, and it kind of worked how it did years ago. You buy a new Call of Duty game, you get campaign, zombies, and multiplayer, and every few months you get new maps for Call of Duty. And in this time, you're working through your battle pass, which you paid for. And then what do you do next November? You buy a new Call of Duty game, and you work with a new battle pass, and you've abandoned all your cosmetics, and you have completely different maps. You don't move back to your previous ones, and like, it's a genius move because people are buying it in droves in the millions. But technically, it's also a bad business move at the same time because you're relying on everyone wanting to move over and forget all their cosmetics and stuff. So it's a good business move and a bad one at the same time. And you have Warzone that's doing its own thing. You're gonna play that forever. Fortnite, you're gonna play that forever. PUBG, you're gonna play that forever. Apex, same thing. They just came out with a new season. Like, do we really need a new whole slate of Call of Duty every year when they can just update the current multiplayer? I know some people don't like when I mention this, but it just seems a bit of a waste. Like,
It's a good point.
my friend that I play Call of Duty with, like, he's been mentioning it as well, and like he plays a lot of Call of Duty. He was talking about, like, so when Gulf War comes out this year, all of the cosmetics he's earned over the past 2 years through Modern Warfare 2 and 3, because it carried over from 2 to 3, is all of his cosmetics gone. Like, everyone's Homelander outfits, like character skins, Starlight character skins. Basically, everyone from The Boys. You've got people from The Walking Dead. Like, so you tell me all those people that have bought those £15 skins or whatever, they can't play them in Gulf War? Let me tell you, after moving from one COD to the next and carrying over all those cosmetics, this year people will be angry because it's just like, that's too much money invested into 2 years of Call of Duty where none of it's going to carry over. Anyway, but that's it. The whole thing applies to Halo. Halo lets you buy multiple different battle passes. The battle passes don't expire. So if you want to get some cosmetics from a different battle pass, congratulations, you can do that. But now, like, Microsoft, they have the opportunity to just support Halo Infinite indefinitely when it comes to multiplayer and come out with these really cool, like, different Halo experiences. Like, yes, we can get a numbered Halo game every 5 years, but why can't we get a horror game in between, or an ODST 2, or something? Just something different. Again, I would love to see Machine Games on a crazy Halo universe game. Not a mainline game, but just something different. And I think that's where they'll go because, again, I don't really see anyone asking for a new multiplayer. Let Halo Infinite be its thing, you know? Um,
It's great.
yeah, like Halo, like no one's ever said anything bad to me in the past like 2 years about Halo Infinite. People love that game now. But hey, things are changing. It is what it is. I think that they'll find the way. And I do. By the way, I do think we will see something Halo related announced when it comes to the certain Infinity thing next month. Logan, have you got anything else to say on Halo before we change topics?
Oh, just one last thing is like I understand why some people might be hesitant to like make multiplayer stay in one version and move to other things and stuff, but like lots of other game franchises have done that and adapted in the modern age. Like you brought up Warzone for example. Like Warzone is entirely its own thing and people go there know what to expect. They're not going there for the campaign or zombies or stuff. They're going for a very specific experience and they know what they're going to get and that's what they want. Just like to me for this it makes perfect sense. That way you're like you've already spent all this time and effort and years and having a literal purge of leadership at a studio to get this game to where it needs to be multiplayer wise and you basically punted the campaign to the sky to the moon with no more further story stuff right now. Like it is a disservice to the fans of Halo that are into the story and single player stuff, who there are a big chunk of the community that are into it for that and that alone, honestly. And the books and the shows and the graphic novels, all the stuff. Like Halo lore is big stuff and Halo World is massive. So the idea of not having any more story content whatsoever in a some reasonable game fashion is the idea of that is a massive disservice and it needs to be addressed and quickly.
Yeah, man, it just times are changing, man. It's weird. I think that you mentioned the whole Warzone thing. Like Warzone, like look, can you see Warzone ever just being like not being a thing even 5 years from now?
No, there. I hear jokes about Gulag almost daily on Twitter and stuff like that. Like not even, you know, talking about Call of Duty. It's just become so part of the vernacular and just Warzone will stand alone. Whether Call of Duty goes back to space or goes to Advanced Warfighter or goes to 60s Yugoslavia or wherever, just throw out someplace. Like no matter what else goes on with future Call of Duty, um, Warzone is going to stick around. So I totally think Infinite can just stand pat as is, add new stuff, and then keep maybe smaller focused campaign stories pumping and like have an ODST2 or like a Halo horror game or like heck even a Halo RPG type element game would be cool. Like it's possible. You never know. There's just it's a huge universe. There's so much story to tell.
Yeah,
You just really need to get it right.
yeah. I just really want single player content. It's been way too long. Um, but yeah, we'll move on. Now I just want to talk about the future of Xbox briefly. It might be longer than briefly. The past few months have been weird for Xbox. And by the way, this isn't a doom and gloom talk thing because I think too many people have been pushing that. If you look at like Xbox a year ago, you had this mass excitement because people like, hey, the ABK deal. It's going to go through. They're going to have all these different IP and studios and people. Like people talked about id Tech working on Halo back then. Like like that would be interesting. And there was all this excitement, and then there was the stuff in January where people were like losing the marbles. Then the business update happened where people were like, okay, it's just these 4 games, right? And bear in mind, nothing else has changed since then. Those 4 games have released. I think Grounded is still yet to come. I don't know, but those games are basically out, and that's all fine. And then the studio layoffs. I see people blaming Phil Spencer online. That blatantly wasn't a Phil Spencer move. And if you look at all the studios, there's the 2 mobile studios, one of which has been closed down. The other, they've basically moved over a lot of the staff to a different studio. You have Arcane, Austin, which whether people like Redfall or not, the whole ordeal that happened last year clearly put a downer on the whole studio. Like it wasn't even like charting as far as I know. The whole situation was bad, and it put a sour taste in people's mouths. Like people were joking, and this basically all stemmed from the whole frame rate situation. So I think out of all the studios to close, that one made the most sense, unfortunately. And then Tango, I'll admit, Tango stung. I think they had so much potential with the IP for Hi-Fi Rush and the potential JRPG they could make, because Microsoft, they need Japanese studios, and that was their only Japanese studio. And, things kind of calmed down for a few days, and then all these other media outlets start coming out with these negative stories all of a sudden, which I thought was a bit weird. Like, you didn't have, there was the story about how Call of Duty is not going to be in Game Pass, and how they have other games and coming to PlayStation, all this stuff. And it's like, why didn't they come out with these stories the day beforehand, or the same day but early? Like Logan, did you find the timing of all these other news articles a bit weird?
On the surface, a bit weird, but in reality, it it's on brand. It feels like anytime something less than positive happens for Xbox, all these writers with all these opinion pieces crawl out of the woodwork and put out a piece, and it rakes in that SEO millions and gets lots of clicks, and they pay rent for another month. It's they get in while the hating's hot. Basically, is it just seems to be what it is. It's disingenuous and it's annoying, but it honestly is to be expected.
Yeah, and then a few days ago we hear that, apparently Perfect Dark is in trouble. And then someone else
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Concern.
yeah, and someone else, and bear in mind, when this whole thing happened, my entire feed was like, "Oh, I'm concerned about Perfect Dark, Jamie, because of this being said." And I'm concerned. By the way, a lot of my feed now is several people just saying, "Oh, I expect Ninja Theory to close down next," based on nothing.
I know it.
And it's like it's annoying. It's like this happens every time there's a studio closure when it's just Xbox. And anyway, the Perfect Dark thing, people are concerned based off one person saying one thing, and then a day goes by, and then someone else says, "Hey, I've heard that Perfect Dark is in fine condition, and there's nothing wrong." And then someone else that originally said that rumor of it being in a bad place said, "Oh yeah, my mistake. It's in a good place." So people were concerned, and even concern trolling for 2 days. And this is my big problem with a lot of the game industry folk, right? And game industry in general. 99% of game news for the past, I'd say, 5 years has been leaks and rumors. It's no longer about upcoming releases. It's not about upcoming games and features and what gameplay is like. It's about rumors, leaks, theories, and that's all it is now. That's all it is. I mean, people can look at the thumbnail for this podcast and the title, but everything in this title is being insinuated. The Xbox Handheld has heavily been insinuated inferred at Microsoft. Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy in general. Literally today's news. New Doom game literally leaked last year. Gears 6, everyone's talking about it. Even the coalition has been hiring for it. That's all there. But 90% of like gaming news is leaks, and when it comes to Xbox, the negative stuff gets the clicks. It just is. Like if I put out an Xbox is dead video, I guarantee you I would get views that would dwarf a positive one. Because that's just the game, right? That's just how it works, unfortunately. And we're less than a month away from a summer showcase, and people have been coming out with negative news stories constantly. And when you have someone come out with a story and then backtrack the next day after causing mayhem, like, why not wait a day or two to get double confirmation? Why come out with... And again, this is my problem with most rumors, most game news being rumors. I'm sure look at you, sick of like 99% of game news is rumors and leaks.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just it's the constant dearth of content. People just have to have something to talk about or write about or whatever, instead of getting creative and writing a think piece about, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could, make this type of game, or it'd be awesome if they brought this franchise back, or what if there was a collaboration for this, or man, this would be a really cool innovation in this space. It's like, so and so said this studio is doomed, or so and so has heard rumblings that this thing may or may not be happening, but we haven't been able to backtrack and confirm from this. And it's a whole bunch of he said, she said, backroom negotiations, like secondhand accounting. Like, I get it, and I get when you report stuff, like, you obviously don't burn your sources. That's obviously rule number one in reporting. But it's gotten to a point where there's a lot of stuff that it just feels like, is this an actual report, or is this a reset era pipe dream? Because it feels like 75% of the stuff out there right now is a reset era pipe dream.
Yeah, and it all filters like through to Reset Era, like you said, and then to Reddit, and then people start talking about it on Twitter, and it just causes mayhem. And like, look at that, scroll IGN, dog crap clickbait, YouTube videos like clickbait, and it's like, and the thing is, earlier in the year, PlayStation had mass layoffs, cancelled games, closed studios, everyone's quiet. Embracer, closed studios, mass layoffs, cancelled games, quiet. And like, I saw an article, I think it was either this morning or last night, that Xbox is the Embracer of the West.
Oh yeah, I saw where that came from.
Like,
Yeah.
what? And by the way, every single post I've made about this, comparing like how the other studios are getting a pass basically, and Xbox isn't. Look at the replies. People are trying to say that I'm wrong, even though they can't prove I'm wrong, right? Every studio that's had layoffs this year, it's been awful. It's an industry-wide problem. And the problem is that you have these IGNs, the GameSpots, you have these content creators that should do their job, that dwarf me in size, but clearly don't, and do clickbait, unwilling to admit that there's an industry problem. People need to talk about it and like say what is the... How can the current problem in the gaming industry be fixed? We've Logan, we've talked about this a million times. I've made videos about this in the past. Like, we gamers obsess about realistic graphics, 60 frames, 4K, realistic skin and all that stuff, and having these like massive open world games that are like 90 hours long, because people do put a game price towards the hours, the hour value on a game. And like, people want a game to look like HellBlade but be 100 hours long. Yeah. And like, the cost of development's way too high. You have developers really needing to branch out and put games on other platforms. Like, look at Sony. Sony were the most locked into their ecosystem than anyone else outside of Nintendo, and now they putting games on PC. There's the Helldivers 2 rumors, and guess what? All of that they want to do is positive, and they get more money. And it's in an age where, like, I've talked about this before. I think there's less people buying games because $70 is too much. It's a bigger risk to buy into a game than ever before, especially when you have developers like sometimes putting out games that aren't like quality. It's just a weird time for gaming, and I think that it's very disingenuous just to aim everything at Xbox and what they've done wrong. And Xbox did mess up. They messed up, I think, specifically with Tango. Xbox isn't perfect. There's features people have been wanting on Xbox for years, which we don't have. We're just getting the ability to pre-install updates for games that haven't released yet, which we should have had years ago. And these are issues that can be fixed. But when it comes to the whole gaming industry as a whole, it's a continuous problem. And it's just going to get worse. Like, hell, we are, 11 years since the last GTA released, and the next one comes out next year. Considering how tech's evolving and how much people want from new games, like, Logan, could you guess when the next GTA comes out?
Well, it's gonna be a hot minute. I would say a next mainline big full-sized GTA would be, let's see, it's 2024, it's going to come out in 2025. I would say maybe 2040 something.
Yeah,
It would be a while.
yeah, like, and that is so scary, by the way. Like 2040.
I know that sounds insane to say 2040 anything, but
Yeah, and like the next Mass Effect, like, again, I have to make everything about Mass Effect. Like, the next Mass Effect comes out in 2029. Like, that is years away. As much as I love the CGI trailer we got at N7 Day, Dragon Age still isn't out yet. Apparently, it's in good condition, but they still working on Dragon Age. And like, these games cost way too much to develop. They take way too long to make. And we're getting like one sequel a generation, maybe. Like, it's depressing. I don't want to think about how old I'm going to be when GTA 8 comes out, or Red Dead Redemption 3, or Mass Effect 7. You know, it's an industry thing, and I've talked about this before. I think there's going to be some sort of game crash in the next 2 years. I think the creative director from Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 has talked about how he thinks there may be something similar to that, and how we're going to see less AAA games over the next few years. And it's not because they're all getting cancelled. It's because they're taking way too long to make. Like, fortunately, I have a database of games coming out over the next several years, and I can tell you, there's big games coming out pretty much every month for the next year and a half. Like, people are safe. Like, so 2024, let me tell you, there's some great games coming out. 2025 is going to be an amazing year for games, even outside of GTA. Like, but 2026 and beyond is kind of scary. Like, I don't know what's going to be happening there. And just seeing all this clickbait, like just aiming everything at Xbox rather than talk about the issue at hand, like, it's not getting anything done. And I think, like, developers and publishers, they do actually listen to consumers. I don't know how I can dig this, like, get my point through enough. Like, I think people should I don't want to say expect less, but like, if you look at like 360 style games, 360 graphics, but at 4K, they still look good. That's why I talk about them so much. Star Wars: The Force Unleashed still looks amazing. Final Fantasy 13 in 4K still looks amazing. It's because 360 level of visual fidelity still looks good. But now people want basically HellBlade, but for everything. And I just don't think we need that. Will it be cool to get one game like that every so often? Yeah. But to expect everything, like, people complain about everything in games now. Like, when Star Wars Jedi Survivor came out, people were telling me that they had bugs, and when they explained the bugs to me, they were talking about clipping. Clipping. When objects pass through other objects, like clothes and whatever, which isn't really much of anything, but because people complain about everything, and I don't know. It's just like people's expectations for games going forward is ridiculously high, and I don't know. I think that I'm just sick of the clickbait and the fact that nobody's talking about the issue and getting anything done. And this, it's gonna consistently get worse. And I will say this: Xbox, they can do better. They need more Japanese studios. They need to be more transparent with their audience. At the same time, stop talking all the time. Like, really, stop doing interviews every 5 seconds. And when it comes to their slate of games coming out this year, after what we know so far, Towerborn, Flight Simulator 2024, Avowed, Indiana Jones, Call of Duty, and some other unannounced things that are coming out, like, it's going to be a good year. But as to say all this clickbait, it's too much. It's really forced and unnecessary. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
Oh, just kind of echoing your thoughts. Like, I completely agree. Like, I expecting less sounds weird to say, but theoretically, if people want Hellblade visuals with near 100-hour or like 50 plus hours gameplay, all this, adaptability, all these modes or features and in depth this or that. Like, that's how you get $100 games eventually. Like, if you want and expect everything in it, like, yes, it would be awesome if they could do that, but at the price that they have, it's not sustainable. And I don't want them to raise prices anymore. I think they will, but I don't want them to. But like at certain point, things gotta give. Either less price or tone down visuals for more artistic style, or less hours of gameplay but higher visuals. Like, there's gonna be some, there's gotta be give or take somewhere. Because like you mentioned earlier, and we talked about at the beginning of the show, like, Crow Country is probably my favorite game I've played this year. It is a HD upscaled, basically PS1 type game, and I love it. Obviously, it is not the most realistic looking thing in the world, but there's something charming about it, and I love it, and the gameplay, the story, mechanics, all that. And it was $20. That's that's crazy good value. And, like, all these Metroidvanias that flourish, they usually retail for a certain price range, and you know what to expect, but they're artistically done and they stretch things out and people really enjoy them. Or, you have an Order 1886, which is one of the most realistic and beautiful games I've played, but it's rather short. But it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is like cinematic, like sublime. Or Hellblade, for that example. Like, Hellblade 2 is going to take that up another level. It just, people have to be realistic about what they expect. Like, everybody wants their cake and eat it too, but at a certain point, it's like, if you want all the boxes checked, you might have to start taking out a mortgage for your gaming budget at some point.
Yeah, it's getting crazy. Before we close out the show, someone the other day messaged me and said, Jamie, I know you like Starfield, and I know you're looking forward towards Hellblade 2, but wouldn't you like Starfield if it had Hellblade 2 visual fidelity? And I just burst
That'd
out
be
laughing.
crazy.
Like they've been making that for another 10 years. What? So 1,000 planets that look like that? That's just not gonna happen. Be realistic. But yeah, again, and just telling gamers we ask too much, like, it's obviously never gonna go over well, because we want games that work and games that are good. We don't necessarily need the most, like you talking about Crow Country. Like, people love that game. Just came out. It's a PlayStation 1 game. like, that's essentially it. And like, you have these like critically acclaimed games every year that, like, they've probably been made by one person. They are pixel games. Like Vampire Survivors, I think, won Game of the Year in 2022, or it might have been 2023, at the BAFTAs. And like it looked like that game looks like it came out in the early 80s. But it
Like a Super Nintendo game.
yeah, basically
Yeah.
and people love that game. Um but it's just like, people want Star Citizen but they want an entire universe with Hellblade graphics. It's just not happening. And even in 100 years it's not happening. Anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing. Logan, it's been great talking to you again. We will be back the same time next week. I should be dropping a video between now and then about some Xbox games. Obviously, that's what the channel is basically about. But again, everyone in chat's been awesome. I think people need to try and take it easy. The news the past few weeks, people have completely lost the marbles or gone off the wagon or whatever. It's a good time to be a gamer. Just try and not be mean to each other online. I'm trying to promote positivity. I'm in a good mood. I had a good birthday. Anyway, I hope everyone has a good day. We're out.